We are live! I hope you guys will enjoy. Let's do this. Kantbei, you're back. You can now present yourself in case people don't know you.
Hello everyone, it's Kantbei over here. I'm a fairly high-rated FOG player, recently back into the FOG top 10 pool as of this week. And I'm primarily known for pioneering like quite silly openings, but somehow, they still work.
That's good! Congrats, man, you deserve it. You need to be on top of your game. Now I'm curious. Why don't you appear in some DJ's videos? I've seen you're fine with him, but you didn't appear in it. That's kind of sad. What happened? Do you hear me?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Could you repeat it?
I've seen your fight versus DJ's on Frostleaf. Did you hear me? Oh, we already have some issues here.
I think...
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So the Digis game, yeah, that was a pretty crazy match. I think ultimately the problem was I was a bit too over-aggressive in like the first big engagement. I kind of lost too many vehicles for taking just a really bad fight in hindsight. And as a result of that, like I gave away like an income advantage that I should have normally kept. And then that kind of just spirals from there. Like I played kind of okay in the mid game, and we were trading back and forth, but at the end of the day, like if you're down like 4k income for 20 plus turns, that's gonna mean like you have like 10 less tanks or something ridiculous like that. And there's not a whole lot skill difference is gonna be able to do to compensate for that. And I'm not even like better skilled than Digis necessarily. I think in FOB he might be slightly better than me. Maybe we're sometimes even. Kind of depends on the map.
That's interesting. I'm waiting for you having an appearance in this channel. I will ask him when this will happen with you, man. You guys are great. So, anyway, now we are here. What are your thoughts on the current map here?
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting map, I think. It's not quite Widge style, where it's super open and like there's almost no mountains. So here we can see like there are quite a few mountains actually in the center, which is good for Sammy. There are quite a few forests, but nothing like super oppressive. The main thing of concern is like there are a lot of silo tiles here on the two corners, which are like, I think these are like really the only relevant areas of the map. The other silo tiles honestly don't matter because you should never really be fighting in those areas, I feel. But this city is surrounded by like 4 silo tiles. I think like that's probably like one of the focal areas of the map. Like the cities are going to be all of the contestants.
So you did cut
yeah,
a little...
I see like a lot of picks here.
You did cut a little bit when you started speaking about the silo style.
Oh, okay. So I said like the silo tiles of relevance are the ones on the two corners. The ones kind of like in the center don't really matter because you will never be fighting there anyway, or you shouldn't be if you are fighting there. So I don't see it like having really much relevance. Like remove it, keep it, it'll probably be the same thing. But the two corners, those silos are pretty important because it allows you to hold like a really strong defensive formation. And if you can occupy it, it's hard to break without artillery. So yeah, that potentially gives Lash some ideas on this map, I feel, because she will make use of those silo tiles much better than Kindle.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. That's a good point here. Now, do you like the map? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think it's...
You're caught enough, bro. I don't know what's going on, but you're caught enough.
Okay.
You did cut off right after you started answering. That's
okay,
so sad. I don't know what's going on. Oh yeah, try again. Do you like it?
Yeah, I think it's an okay map. It's not my favorite map in the pool, but if I have to play on it, I won't complain. And I'm generally like pretty okay with this map compared to like some of the others.
What's the worst map in the current rotation?
Well, it recently got removed, like just last night, because I kept complaining about it. But it was the Wheel of Torment map. I'm not even sure if like you ever got that map. But
I actually
it was so
got
broken.
it once. I'm curious. That map looked interesting actually. So why it was the worst?
So, Sammy is available in Tier 4. And the thing is, it's not even clear to me that Sammy is not the pick in Tier 2. So, and there's no Tier 1 on this game, right?
Yeah.
Like, the settings don't have a Tier 1. So it's like Tier 4, Tier 3, Tier 2. You pick Sammy every game. Like, I think she's the only pick. The only person who can fight her in Tier 2 was Eagle. And that's not even like, I'm not even sure like if Eagle actually can survive Sammy. The other thing is like, on that map, you actually don't have to build tank. Or maybe you build one tank, right? Like to ward off like an early recon, and then you never build another tank again. As Sammy, all you do is get recon, get mechs, get infantry, get anti-air, get copters. And then you get like 40 copters, you know, play like Go 7 in like one of our recent games. You just start mech spamming. And like, that's how you win. The center,
wow.
the center is just completely dead. Like you get a forest, you park it in front of the forest of your forward base, and the center is completely locked down. Like you can never move a tank through there. So tanks are completely useless on this map because the only advantage of tank over mech, right, is they're supposed to be mobile. They can go where the mech isn't, right? But if you just mech spam in one area and then you lock down the ability of the tank to move elsewhere, then, you know, they will have two mechs to your one tank and the tank will just die and you will never trade efficiently. So, because of like, that's the ideal composition on that map, Sammy is the best CO that does that, right? Like, if it's not Sammy, then you pick Adder. Yeah. So, like, the map's just, you know, fundamentally broken. Because, like, of the forward ports, the income is actually high enough, you just you just lock down the entire map and they can never do anything to you again, right? So, like, the problem also is, like, even if you ban Sammy, it doesn't fix anything. Because if you ban Sammy, then, like, in every tier, there's a clear best choice. And if you keep banning them, then you just remove the whole tier, right? And then you're left with, like, a tier with no COs, right? So, like, how is that map playable? It's really not playable.
That's funny. I actually enjoy my experience on the map so far. I think it's a fun map, but based on your experience, it's a good thing it's out. Now, what's your favorite map on the current rotation? I don't know if you're answering because there's some communication issues. Are you there, bro?
Just because, like, hear me?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
You cut off the moment I asked you the question for some reason.
Oh no. So yeah, my favorite map in the pool right now is Marengo.
Oh, that's cool. I like this map as well. So you don't need to justify because I like it as well. So with that being said, why did you pick Drake here?
Usually my go-to pick would be Andy, but I didn't really feel like playing him that day. Drake isn't for the same reason Olaf is really strong on this map. Since the fighting is mainly on the two corners, right? It's not really possible for you to win both corners against, like, you know, someone evenly scaled. Like, usually you will win one corner, you will lose slightly in the other corner. So mass damage is really good here because I can win on one side of the map and then pop my power and delay all your captures on, like, the other side of the map. Of course, like, this doesn't work against, so it would take way more than, like, mass damage, but, like, against another CO, right, this would work. And then, yeah, like, air is not particularly good on this map, I feel. Like, the airport's kind of very backwards, so it takes a long time to go online, and then it takes a long time to get to the front, so copter on copter fighting is not super relevant, which is better for Drake, obviously. And then, yeah, like, there's a lot of heavy terrain, so he will, you know, his units will survive okay. That's also what makes Andy pretty good. Of course, like, because there are so many roads around, and, like, the plains, like, there are so many roads and, like, one movement terrain, like shoals, roads, silo tiles, and cities. These one movement terrain. The rain does not actually do all that much here. So yeah, it's purely for the mass damage if you're gonna pick Drake here. The rain won't do much.
Now, I will say this. Cole looks so bad in this map, am I right?
coal?
Yeah, because I feel like there's not enough road by the buildings.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, coal probably has. Like, it's an okay coal map, but I still wouldn't pick him in tier 4.
I think tier 4 seals like Adder are just straight up better in this map for some reason.
Oh, tier 4.
Tier 4, which seal?
In tier 4, coal isn't even the best CO who makes use of roads.
Yeah. So, you have now remote control. Let's do this. You are in charge of the pacing and the speed.
Alright, so yeah, fairly normal first turn. We like a day 2 mech. But given like we recently played with Go 7, I honestly don't know what to expect. Okay, good, you did build infantry. And yeah, like I'll talk about here, like the base first. Obviously, you go for like the closest cities. You can ignore the airport kind of because like, getting it earlier or later.
You were cutting off. I missed a full turn of you speaking.
Hold on. Let me switch to my phone. That might be better for like the audio.
Yeah.
And then I'll stay in Parsec 4. Okay, can you hear me?
I think it's already much better.
Alright, perfect. So, I was saying, in the early game, honestly, like, it's a fairly normal capture phase. You don't have to rush this backwards airport, although you did it on your end, but this is kind of like a Sammy-specific thing.
Yeah.
Because I think as Sammy, you want a fast T-copter.
Yeah.
Because you will want, like, mechs on this map as Sammy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that justifies why you went for it. But like as a normal CO, you don't have to get the airport really fast. You can leave it until like the last infantry, because honestly, like if you get it earlier or later, it doesn't matter except for like a T-copter timing. But if you don't plan on getting T-copter, it doesn't matter.
I always get T-copter in this map regardless of the CO, so I always open up like that.
Here, okay, so like I get a really fast recon here because I know I'm fighting against a Sammy. So, you know, Sammy really likes transports. So you want like vision to see like if that is what Sammy did. The other thing is like if you run into like a mech spam swarm, you want to know in advance if what's coming, right? Like you don't want to be caught off guard, like you run all your tanks into infantry and then suddenly like there's 50 mechs behind it, right? And you just die. So the recon is really important for like getting vision and understanding like what Sammy's game plan is. It's also like quite good to potentially punish infantry captures that aren't supported by tanks, because like some Sammy players don't like building tanks, so you can potentially like get free hits from that. The recon itself won't stop the capture, of course, because you need like 2 units usually to interrupt. But you know, it is still like damage on Sammy's infantry. It will still drain funds, so it's like still pretty good, even if it doesn't stop captures. Then you already get like the first mech. I think this is potentially like maybe too early. I think I would have waited for like the first T-copter build before getting a mech, but let's see here. If you build a T-copter here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 would be somewhere along this diagonal. Maybe it's okay actually, because then like you build the T-copter and the mech. No, it doesn't work. So you want to time the build so like the T-copter and the mech are on the same turn. And then the mech will move up like 2 tiles, and then the T-copter can be either here or here. And then like the next turn, the mech can load into the T-copter and like boost forward. So getting it a turn earlier doesn't actually help this mech get any further forward than it would have in the previous turn. In which case, like, get an infantry, because then you'll have more infantry at the front. So yeah, it's just better to have an infantry this turn.
That's interesting. That's good to know for the future.
And then I think at this point, yeah, I still don't think I had committed to like playing for which corner of the map, because there is no like really strong side or weak side on this map. You can maybe argue this bottom right is stronger for the bottom left player, and the top side is better for the top right player, but it's not so clear. Like, this is kind of like where some of like Widget's influence is showing, even though he didn't make this map. In that you can play for like either side of the map, and it should like be more or less fine, I think.
I think to reinforce both sides it takes the same time, or roughly the same time, so I do think there's no strong or weak side, just like what you said.
Okay, T-Copter. Moving in forward, yeah, this is all like okay. I think maybe I would have committed more infantry for you on like the bottom right area, because like you only have like 4 right now, but this is not a huge mistake. Like, I don't think it actually will severely delay anything. Maybe like some of these cities like on the right side, you might end up like having a harder time holding them, especially like if it's just infantry versus infantry. But you're Sammy, like your infantry are so much better. You just sit on a city and watch people die. So this is still okay. And then, unlike you, I think like you have already like committed most of your infantry to like this top side. Unlike that, I am kind of like choosing a more balanced infantry like split. The reason for this is not just for like captures, right? But it's also because I don't really want to be fighting Sammy anyway with infantry versus infantry. So it doesn't matter to me if I have like more infantry or not in a certain flank. I'm still gonna be relying primarily on my vehicles to do the heavy lifting. And like the infantry maybe like do follow-up kills, but they're never really gonna be the thing that wins me in this game. So this is why like I kind of split my infantry kind of very evenly. Oh, sorry. I think we went through that too fast. Okay. T-Copter, mech behind it. Pretty good. You get a tank on the right side. I think this is more or less correct. You still need to like be worried of like recon aggression. So yeah, tank here is fine. You could even have like delayed this tank potentially, because I think no one sane is really gonna like suicide the recon into these infantry until they're like kind of more in this area. So you could have delayed it for like maybe another turn if you wanted to be like slightly greedier, but this is also okay.
So here's my thought process on why I got that thing there. I was actually speaking and my mic was muted. So basically, I send my mech on the top part. So I feel like I don't really need defense in the top part, because mech is like my cannon glass, as Advanced Warrior says. So I'm like mech defense up, tank defense down. Because I don't know if you're the kind of player that will rush recon, and you actually did. And I think this is like some very popular opening here. I've seen a lot of player opening with recon, so I was like, I need something on both front to like shut down any recon I can.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it's a fair take. I think like if you're really worried about recons though, the correct answer is just get 2 tanks, 1 to each side, and then you start getting mechs behind that. So the reason why is because like for the mech to really answer a recon, it needs to be like using the T-Copter a lot to like move around. Otherwise it's too slow, your infantry will outrun it. And that's not really what your T-Copter wants to do, right? Like your T-Copter wants to be continuously ferrying units from the base to like the front, and like very rarely does it want to be tied down, just ferrying one mech around. And if it does want to do that, then you need like more than 1 T-Copter, right? Like if you remember our games versus Go 7, this is why it goes like 4 or 5 T-Copters. so that he can use two kind of like at the front to like shuffle mechs around and like be slightly more mobile than they usually are. And then like the other 2 or 3 are constantly just ferrying mechs to the front. Because for this strategy to be effective, you really need a lot of mechs because they will die really easily. Because, you know, mechs die to everything, right? If a recon hits them, an inf hits them, a tank hits them, a copter, medium tank, everything that hits them, they kind of like crumble, right? They're kind of like artillery in that regard. So you need like so many of them that it's impossible for your opponent to like first hit all of them. And that's how mechs become really scary. One mech by itself is like okay defensively, like if it's behind the tank. But if the mech gets hit first, then it's not great.
This is a good breakdown. Thank you very much for these insights. These are really helpful, man. I always enjoy my time when you're coming because I learn more. That's the point of it, I think.
No worries. So here I think this is like the first interesting move I do. Instead of finishing the capture on the tower, I just move the infantry forward and then tell this backward infantry, you know, it's your job to capture the tower now. And the reason I do this is because I see from like in this side of the map, I don't really see anything yet. And also like I'm fairly confident, you know, this tower is very safe. Like it's not possible to really contest this tower. Because I don't see anything on this top side, I have a feeling that you might be rushing things in the bottom. So I want to like get a turn of tempo ahead of you by just skipping this capture entirely. So this infantry can immediately capture this or this. Because these two cities end up being very contested on this map. Quite frequently, this is where the fighting starts. So if I am a turn ahead, it's possible for me to get the city before you can even spot it. And then I get the capture off, and then maybe the infantry dies. But, you know, it's much easier for me to deny you from taking the city than to take the city when it's neutral.
This is true, and this is good to know. This is another great insight from Kantbei.
Okay, you take your tower. Yeah, that's also fine. Like again, you could have moved it forward as well. But again, like there was a recon, but at the same time, you know, you have a mech coming to defend it, so it's not as if I had any free hits actually.
So my mech did his job, even if he didn't get any kill, he scared away your recon.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the point of the mech, right? Like, the mech is not necessarily there to kill things, although it's nice if you can. The mech is really there to scare them from hitting your stuff. So it is, like, functionally a 3000 artillery that's very slow. Like, that's the best way to think about mechs. You do get, like, another tank for the top side now, which is pretty good, I think, like, in response to the recon, maybe realizing that you needed something a bit more mobile to, like, answer this recon from just, like, dancing around between cities and being annoying. So this is okay.
I was actually really scared of a double recon on top, because I know you have weird opening, and I'm like, if he chose that map, maybe he had something in his store for me.
And then, yep, so the moment I see like the mech can hit my recon, I just like run the recon away to like, I park it on a city, so like, I don't know, if you have like an infantry or something here, you can't capture it immediately. Like you have to spend a turn scaring my recon away before you can capture it. So it just potentially delays 1k income. Although obviously, like looking at the map now, you didn't have an infantry in place. You easily could have if you like skipped this tower. And because like I didn't watch the replay, I don't know, right? Like if you skip this tower and like ran into the forest, you could have like had an infantry prepared to capture that. So this is why like I did that move. Also, like I just want to keep an eye on this mech without being in range of it. And keeping an eye on like, you know, how forward are you being on this front? Because everything that you show me on this front, in the top, will inform me about what I don't see in the bottom right and what I should be seeing. So this is how like you abuse the information your opponent gives you. Like if what they show you on one front of the map affects necessarily what they are probably doing on the other side of the map, because they cannot commit resources equally to both sides, right? Like if they're committing a lot here, that means there's less things here. If they're committing less things here, that means there's stuff here. So like that will dictate to me how I should be playing on both sides.
And D just 101, if you have the same amount on both sides, you will lose both sides.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Like So the more accurate thing is like you will win one side and you will lose one side. But the problem is the side where you lost like a huge part of your army, right? Like your tanks died, your infantry died. You're gonna lose a lot of things, right? And then on the side where you won, you will number one be winning much slower because like not all of your things were together. And then even if you do win like not much slower than them, you will still be in a situation where the income is more or less even, but you have like less tanks and less units just because you committed so much on the other side and all of it died.
So
you load the mech again into T-Copter and then park it in front of my recon, kind of just daring me to like hit you.
I'm like, go away, that's my building.
Yeah. I actually like didn't do any of like the damage calculations for this. Maybe it's okay for me to hit this. Like if we...
It's not. I'm Sammy. Keep that in mind. I'm Sammy with the tower. And this is a mountain we are talking about.
Yeah, that's true. Let's just run the calculation real quick. Wait, this is the defender. And then you get a recon. But this should be Sammy. Yeah, no, this is not worth it. Like... Yes, I injured the mech by like 4 HP, and then like you do 6 damage to me. This is completely not worth. So yeah, there's no way for me to like take this fight. This is like a pretty good mech positioning because it scares me off of this city. It protects this city as well, and then I cannot park my recon on this city or this city, which are the two cities I want to deny from you, right? Well,
yeah,
because like the mech can also reach those two tiles, so this is a pretty good mech positioning.
I got a question. You say this building. Why would you like to deny it from me? Because usually, in 90% of my games, this building is to top player and this building is to bottom player. That's like how it goes in my Halo, at least.
Yeah, that is also true. I think, and like most like high level, this is also true. The issue is that you're Sammy. So if I don't play very carefully in like denying your captures, it's very possible for her to like take very aggressive captures, because like her infantry are just better. It's harder to interrupt, right? So like if you don't have like enough vehicles to like really answer stuff, then it's possible for Sammy to like play more aggressive than usual. So this is only like I only do these kinds of things because specifically you're Sammy. If you're like a different CEO, I wouldn't be worried about this.
Okay, that's very good to know, and it makes sense. Kantbei plans everything, everywhere at once.
I do like the second T-Copter. I think like yes, this is pretty necessary, especially like if you want to like play a mech heavy playstyle, which it does appear like you want to do. I'm kind of like of two opinions about like this T-Copter moving the mech for a second turn in a row. But I think this is more or less fine, probably. Like, this is a pretty strong position for the mech. I think it's probably worth it to, like, spend another turn. And then, like, this T-Copter should definitely be, like, heading back soon to, like, get another mech.
And that's funny because I went that way because of Go 7. Because of our last 2v2. That was just before... Well, actually, that was just after the one we did for Advanced Warrior channel. So yeah, I was I'm all in for mechs.
Go 7 has been like a horrible influence on me because like I've also been experimenting a lot with like just spamming mechs on some maps in Fog like at high level. And the crazy thing to me is like sometimes it actually does work, right? Like I played against like a 1300 player recently and I like built like 5 mechs like over the I built like 3 T-Copters and 5 mechs or something like that. So it wasn't like, pure mech spam like Go 7, but it worked really well. Like the mechs did a lot that game. And then like another game, I think I opened like 4 T-Copters before I built, my second tank. Like I don't think I even built a second tank that game. I just went 4 T-Copters immediately, and it was still like a pretty winning position for me at the end of it. So it's pretty crazy. Like some of this stuff actually does work. But yeah, it's also a lot harder to pilot, I would say.
King of
but
the
like
penguin,
when you can get it to work, it's really
aka
strong.
King of the mechs.
Yeah, King of the mechs. One thing here, I built an artillery in the top side and then another recon for the bottom. Generally, I wouldn't get like the second recon in the artillery this early, but the artillery I wanted because it's actually quite good on this map, assuming you can get it in position, right? So like if you put an artillery here, for example, or if we mirror it for your end here, it protects this city from being captured. Obviously, like Sammy actually doesn't deny Sammy, but against like most COs, you know, it will work. And then like it's fairly easy to defend it. Like there's a forest here, there's a mountain in front of it. There are two cities here. Like you can very easily protect this with just infantry, maybe one AA and then like an artillery here, and you can lock down this entire area and make it very difficult to break. The other thing
that's funny because you mentioned artillery. In one of my game, I am Jess, and artillery spam is actually working in this map.
Yeah, I think like artillery spam is like, you know, potentially okay here. Like it's not the worst map for it. The issue with artillery is kind of like the same issue as mechs. If they just choose to move their tanks to the other area of the map, the artillery cannot damage more things than like tanks, right? Like they will never be able to damage as fast as tanks because artillery need to move and then shoot, right? Tanks can move then shoot you, right, on the same turn. So artillery will never win a damage race, but if they're not prepared for it and they just run their tanks into your artillery line, then you just, you know, kill 3 tanks and it works, right? So this is like not the worst map for it.
I was losing like the game, and then he did exactly what you said. He just run his wall of tanks into my arteries, and then my artery just mopped the floor with the tanks, and the unit count suddenly became to my advantage, and I had a good laugh. I was like, oh, artillery are actually OP in this map.
Yeah, they're pretty strong. I can consider like getting like artillery first, maybe, if I'm not scared of a recon opening. Although like you said, right, because recons are so common, it's safer to get a tank than an artillery.
Exactly, and especially
the
in
other
this
reason,
map, like, I think a lot of players adopt the recon opening in 90% of the map, so it has become like one of the most used openings. So I think like I will slow down my transport openings because recon openings are just too popular, and it's kind of sad because it became meta, and I like stuff that don't become meta. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just fun to play different game, but when you just meet like so many player that just opens up with recon, look, I'm like, okay, another one. Another one. Another one. Another one. It never ends.
yeah, I mean it's a little unavoidable, right? Because players who want to win and like the people in global league, right, are the players who naturally want to win the most because like it's like the most competitive pool of players in Advanced Wars. Like it self-selects. So because they want to win, they will look for the opening that seems like gets them the most winning chances. So if an opening is good, they'll probably try it, and if they keep winning with it, they'll keep doing it. So yeah, although I don't think like recon first is necessarily that good. Like to be clear, like on this map, yes, it has some uses depending on like the matchup, but I think, you know, if you just open tanks, it's generally much safer than recon. The problem with the recon is like if you don't know how to like count tiles, and you take an attack that you shouldn't have taken and the recon dies, that's just a losing trade for you usually. The other thing is like if you don't know, like, because like the primary use of the recon is actually not to harass infantry in the early game. The primary use of recon is to get information so that you know what your opponent is doing. But if you don't know like how to get that information, like for example, right, like I talked a lot about like by affecting, you know, what you show me on this top front tells me what you're doing in the bottom. Not many players know how to do that. So if you don't know how to do that, then this recon is actually pointless for you because like as we're seeing, a mech is like bullying the recon away. It's not actually able to do any damage without dying. So then, like, you know, if you're the only reason you bought the recon is to do damage, then it's already failed, right? So that's why you need to be careful with recon opening.
And that's funny because you speak about bullying. That's very funny here because people in my elo, at least, they use the recon opening to harass instead of gathering intel. So depending on the player, like in 90% of the case, and it also depends on the opening, but I will say 90% of the cases, they will just end up losing their first recon. And this is really bad because this is 4k. Now, if you kill like 4 infantry, I guess this is fine, but then it will take you a long time to send back a recon, because recon are only good on roads. So I guess this is fine for the unit count, but this is kind of bad for like the intel gathering, because it will take you forever to bring back the recon. So I have a good laugh when I see like these harassing player that just basically start opening with recon because they want to be overly aggressive. I'm like, okay, that guy doesn't understand recons, and he will probably end up losing his recon out of greed. And this is funny because this is a lot of people in my ILO, at least. I don't know about higher ILO, but I can tell like from 700 to 1000, there's a lot of them. Now about 1000, I didn't stick around long in 1000, but usually the few 1000 I fought were smarter than that. So that's just based on my experience.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate from like when I was like back in like 900 to like 1000. I also like experienced the same thing. There was a point where, you know, everyone was opening recon because like at lower level, people don't know how to defend against recon because they don't get tank, or like they don't move their tank correctly, right? So they do captures which aren't safe, the recon hits it, and then, you know, you're super happy because you got free value. And then at a certain point, people realize, if I just build a tank every turn, if I just build a tank every game as my first vehicle and protect all my captures, then their first recon will just die, and then I'll be winning. So at a certain point, like, people realize that works, and then they just stop building recons, they go tank first. Because, you know, like, they use recon for harass, right? They don't know how to read the map with it. And then, like, eventually, like, when you get to my level, people will do recons to get the information, not really to harass. Although if they see free hits, they will be able to tell if it's free or not just by like analyzing all the information available. So then it becomes kind of popular again, but you know, there are still players who just go tank first. So like you see a lot of diverse openings at the highest level. So yeah, it goes very back and forth, I feel. Anyway, the RT, oh, there was a second reason I bought this RT. It's because he showed me a mech. That's the reason I got this RT. I was quite worried you might be mech spamming me. Not only because, like, you know, we had recently played with Go 7, but because, you know, it's day 9, I'm already seeing a mech. And, like, you actually showed me this mech, like, I think 2 turns ago, right? So I was thinking, like, okay, if there's a mech this early, there's probably, like, more mechs coming. The classic answer to mech is, like, get an artillery, because the mech can't approach you. Not until like Sammy has like her COP for the +1 move to like first hit the artillery, and even then like you need to kill the infantry in front of the artillery, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's like the cheap solution to like, you know, if they're mech spamming, artillery is a cheap solution to like slow them down, and then like you launch an attack where the mechs aren't, basically.
I think there's another good response when I see mech spam. I start battlecopter spamming regardless of the CO, because battlecopter, yes, they cost more than artillery, but I think they are just better to counter mechs. Now, you did good point, that's cheap, that's good, that's working well, but I think my most effective way to counter mech spam is battlecopters, because mech don't really do damage. They do a little bit if they first strike, but the counterattack is really hard on them, so they will not really first strike you. They will likely run away or hide somewhere. Battlecopter are really good.
That's a good point, and like that's exactly the reason why I built a battlecopter this turn, because like I also like know that, right? Like, oh, if there are lots of mechs, then that means I should get an artillery, then a battlecopter, and then at some point I want a medium tank. Like, these are the classic answers to mech. You don't get recons and tanks against mechs, really. Especially this map, because like there's a lot of heavy terrain. If the mech sits on the heavy terrain, the tank and RT won't trade really efficiently into the mech, so it's not really that good. So like you want something that can bully them off the terrain and then hit the mech when it's sitting on like a road or a plane. That's the value hit. If it's sitting on like a mountain, like you're just gonna we ran the calculation earlier. The recon just dies to the mech, right? Like even with first hit, it really does not work. I would be caution, right? Like not immediately going for like battle copter against mech spam necessarily. Like yes, one or two are okay, but the problem with too many copters is usually the mech spamming player should be getting anti-air, because like they will also know, right? Like if you know the fact that mechs are weak to copter, you should assume at least like your opponent will probably also know that, and they will be finding an answer to it. So like if you run a scenario where you know your battle copter hits the mech, and then an anti-air comes out and kills your battle copter, then it's still like not a great trade, right? Like the mech will just heal up, because like the battle copter will do like 4 or 5 damage to the mech. It won't really kill it, but the AA will one-shot the battle copter. So that's why you do need to be careful. So yeah, I agree. You know, 1 to 2 Battlecopters, maybe more if you're like a slightly stronger Battlecopter CEO like Max or say Andy. They're pretty good against mech spam,
Grim.
but I wouldn't just spam them. You still need like other vehicles.
Grim has crazy copters. I think Grim has the best copters ever because they can almost one-shot other copters. I don't know if you have played a lot of Grim.
I played a few Grim. I have a Grim only account. I think I played about like 100+ games on him in League.
Oh, we are similar.
He's pretty fun.
I think I have a bit more because one of my alternate account is only Yellow Comet. So I basically only play Sunja and like Grim, and a lot of time I just pick Grim because I'm like, Grim, man, he's a meme, but sometimes when you can get a good win, you get a good win.
Yeah. Grim is pretty good in Fog, I think. Like, he has some ideas. The thing is, like, I think Grim definitely does not have, like, the best Battlecopters. The problem with Grim's Battlecopters is they can only one-shot if you have 2 towers consistently. With 1 tower, it's kind of like a dice throw. Like, a pretty good dice throw, but
it's
still a
91
dice throw.
to 100, so if
Yeah,
you chip
so it's
damage
like a-
it, there's more chance you kill it.
Yeah, so like Battlecopter and Infantry then does work. In Fog especially, because like the plus move COs, like pure plus move, are not as strong as in Standard, Grim does a lot better because then even if you have plus move, doesn't mean like you can first strike Grim if you can't see him, right? So in Tier 4, I think like he has one of the better Battlecopters for sure. In strong Battlecopter maps, he's pretty good. But he definitely loses, I think, to like Eagle and Max, who have like way better copters. But he does like end up countering Andy. So Andy, I think, has like maybe the 3rd best Battlecopters in the game. Oh wait, 4th, because Sensei exists. Yeah, so Andy's like the 4th best Battlecopter, but yeah, but then like Grim hard counters Andy's Battlecopters, so it's kind of like a weird triangle. So I would say in Fog, maybe Grim is like probably like the 5th or 6th best CO for like Battlecopter spam, probably.
That's interesting. Now, earlier you mentioned medium tank. What are your thoughts on medium tank? I think I already asked you the question before, but I actually forgot what was your answer. So it will refresh my mind if I did, and it will just help new viewer that just jump into that video for the first time. What are your thoughts on medium tank in general?
In general, you shouldn't build them until you have a very good reason to build them. So the problem with medium tank in Fog, and even Neo tank, but medium tank especially, number 1, it's blind, because it can only see like the tile next to it, right? So it's very easy for the medium tank to get trapped. It costs about 2 tanks, which is okay if you have like an army around it, right? Like it's a good supplemental build if you have like enough, vehicles and like infantry and like support units to like help it do its job. But if the medium tank is alone, it kind of just gets bullied by infantry because like it just gets trapped everywhere and then it doesn't do anything. But there are specific scenarios where medium tank is pretty good. So like here in this scenario, right, like if you're going mech spam, medium tank's pretty good because medium tank doesn't care where your mech's sitting, it will just hit you and you won't really do damage back. It's also pretty good because mech spam means like you're probably not getting that many tanks yourself, which means, because like one of the punish to medium tank is they just start getting a lot of like tanks, and then they just kill everything around the medium tank. But if you're getting mechs, you probably aren't able to like kill everything around my medium tank, which makes this far less of a threat, right? Like my recon can just hang out in the back, and like I'm not worried a tank will come out of nowhere and just kill it and blind my medium tank. And then it's kind of like more defensive, I think. If you want to play aggressive, you usually want a Neo tank rather than a medium tank, because like a Neo tank can one-shot tanks without powers, right? Unless like you're Max or Grim. So like Max and Grim are like, and I think Jess are like the three COs. I would prefer medium tank over neo tank if I'm playing aggressive because they do the job of the neo tank anyway. But most COs, neo tank is better because it can one-shot tanks. It has 6 move, right? It's slightly faster, slightly more durable.
Just better, I think. Neo tank are just better. They go faster, harder, they can sustain more damage. I like Neo tank, and that's funny because I build more medium tank because medium tank are just cheaper, but Neo tank, man, Neo tank, I like them.
Yeah. So I think medium tanks have a place for sure, but generally speaking, you need a good reason to build them. So like if your opponent is mech spamming, that's a pretty good reason to build them. Okay, and then my recon continues to just be annoying here, like just dancing around your mech, like staying out of range, like we're just doing our little dance here. And then, you know, you actually like play this kind of well. So like I think you purposely hide your tank so that I can't see it, right?
Yeah, I don't want you to notice it. I don't want you to see it.
Yeah. I think like okay, yes. So okay, this works. You complete the trap, right? So like you make it so the only tile I can attack from is this tile, and it's a tile that your tank can reach. Yeah. So because I could have gone the recon here, so yeah, this is a good trap. Maybe should have been slightly concerned about like an anti-air killing the T-copter, but honestly, I think like this was an okay gambit to take because it's not as if like most people will have a T-copter. I mean like a really fast AA in this stage of the game. Some people will, like I know you like fast AAs. I mean,
yeah.
But generally speaking, I think this is an okay gambit to take.
But that's funny.
One thing
you mentioned fast A. I actually slowed down with that recently, man. Since I found out like Battlecopter were really good with pretty much any CO, I delay much more my fast AA. Like I still make one at some point, but now it's much later on in the game, and this is funny because since I use my copter better. Well, my MMR it's not really much better because, well, a little bit. Well, I should say I'm able to be better player usually, but there again, sometimes I'm not perfect and I lose regardless. What I mean there is I win more often since I stopped having that very early anti-air I used to have.
Yeah, and that's just because of like how the unit triangle works, right? Like the reason why going tank first is almost always good is because if they go B-copter, the B-copter does like 5 damage to the tank, and then if they have an AA behind it, like you lose the copter and then like you probably just lose the game from there if they play correctly. Like it's because like the damage you took was so bad, right? And then like if a tank hits the AA in turn, it doesn't kill the AA. It lives at like 4 HP, something like that, and then the AA will just go heal like 2 times to get to 8 HP, and then it can kill another copter, right? So because of how like that interaction works and like how cheap it is to repair AA, like it's kind of bad for you to go B copter first against tank first into AA, right? The problem with AA first, on the other hand, is if you're not sure they're going copter first, it can't really hit anything, right? Like, it doesn't want to hit infantry because it's afraid the tank might hit it back. And then, yeah, like, if a tank hits it back, then that's pretty sad. Like, you lost value for no reason. So, yeah, that's kind of why, like, people just go tank first, generally, and, like, it's the meta. Because if a tank gets hit first by something, like a copter or a tank, it won't die. It will take the least amount of damage from, like, the basic vehicles. If you get first hit, right, like 2 out of the 3 vehicles they can go for, so like tank, AA, or copter, right, if we think about it as a triangle, 2 of the vehicles they can actually fight. 1 they hard counter, 1 they go even. Copters are the only unit they can't fight, but copters are more expensive and they are hard countered by like anti-air. So yeah, that kind of interaction makes it so like tanks are dominant. Also because like tanks do good against recon. AA and copters suck against recons. I don't think many people realize this, but like copters do like 5 damage to a recon. It's kind of stupid.
Yeah.
In your move, I might have considered like putting the infantry on the forest to like make sure the recon has no choice and like you can kill it the next turn. But getting vision is also okay. It's not the worst.
I wanted to see what
Because
was going
yeah,
on.
you don't have recon here.
I wanted to
Yeah,
see,
you want.
and the other reason is the defense stars. The defense stars.
Yeah, that's true.
And the vision.
Yeah, that's true. This is a reasonable choice. Yeah, so the thing is like the recon could have run away, right? But I think I ended up not doing that, not realizing you had the tank. I was well, we'll see what I do. But okay. Here you kill an infantry. Pretty good. You get a copter, okay. Okay, so this infantry here definitely should have just gone for the capture here, right?
Yeah.
Like it should never go for like this because like number one, you don't know if I have an infantry there. Number two, you should be worried like there might be a tank coming to like hit your tank.
Yeah.
So you definitely don't want to like make it so that I can hit you from the city. Like if I hit you from the plane, that's still kind of bad because like the tank is alone, but it's not the worst thing in the world, right? But if I hit you from the city, like that instantly loses you the front because like you only have the one tank. So you should have just gone for this capture here for sure. Potentially I would have even considered like let's actually look at your position here. How could you have done this better? Capture here for sure. This is correct. Yeah, maybe if like you moved your infantry here to this road tile, but again, like you have no idea, right? Like so, it's kind of like with the benefit of hindsight, we're saying this. If you move this infantry to the road tile, then you don't need to block from the city, and then this infantry can block from here. It makes it so like the tank cannot reach my tank, I think. And then like this kill was safe for you. It's just a free hit. But again, like you know, this is the benefit of hindsight, right? Like it's fog, you have no idea, so you could only play to like the best of your assumptions. So like probably the safest play would have been to like block from here. You still get hit by a tank, which is kind of unfortunate, but that's kind of like the risk you take with some of these attacks. You also get a copter. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, that works because like you want something to answer like my own copters. Also, like Drake copters are not that good. It's like minus 20% attack. Sammy is only like minus 10% attack. So we've actually found someone with worse copters than Drake. I mean, we've found someone with better copters than Drake, and that's Sammy.
Grid has worse copter as well. But now I will say that
oh yeah, Grid.
The reason why I bought that battle copter is I know I will never win the tank war, and I don't know how heavy you will have battle copters. And I also know my battle copters are my only direct unit better than yours. So I'm like, I will flex it, man. I will flex it, trust me. Now, the other reason, I'm Sammy. I'm Sammy. So because I'm Sammy, I like to have high unit count. And this is you that told me that in the past. So I'm like, I know I'm trash, I know I'm not good enough to beat Kantbei, so I will actually try to be smart and have more units, so I will just battle copter spam.
Yeah, that's all fairly reasonable. Yeah, these are all like good takes, I think. I don't hate it. Battlecopter to answer Battlecopter, even though you don't see it, it's pretty good. Battlecopter can also like hit tanks if I don't respect you enough to like get an AA in time. Then your copter gets free hits, so all of this is very good. I would consider maybe like getting an AA following the copter, or maybe like a second copter, because like the problem with one copter is like if a copter hits it, it's also like pretty much dead. Like it'll be like 3 HP. It's mostly useless. It can still block, but mostly useless for fighting.
Poor infantry.
Okay, here
you deserve better.
Here we get a good luck roll. Yeah, I think that was like a luck roll for me, and it did pretty well. And then I think I actually messed this up.
That
because,
one was too low roll, I think. Too low roll, because he got a tower and yeah.
No, yeah, it's too low rolls, but it's also like pretty bad odd to begin with for me to kill, because you're sitting on 3-star terrain, right? So with 110 attack, which is what you have with one tower as Drake, you only have like a 33% chance to kill. So this was probably not gonna work. I shouldn't have expected it to. Oh, okay, I see. I forgot I did this. So I actually had the recon. I was actually thinking like at the start of my turn when I was looking at the board, how do I get vision of your tank to hit it? And then when I saw I moved my infantry, I was like, wait, so how do I get vision of the tank? But it turns out the recon reaches. So I probably calculated this at that time. I can't believe I refuse to believe I didn't think about this when I was playing. So okay, then this is fine for me. Then we just hit your tank, and then yeah, you can see like I think this was even like kind of a low roll. Like it could have been like a 9-4 or a 9-5 split because I'm on a city, but 8-5 is still like kind of like the average roll, I think.
Yeah, that's a plane roll. That's 2 unit on planes. So I rolled and you low rolled.
Okay. So yeah, here we can see like this is kind of like the risk, right? Where because you only had like one tank in this area and nothing else to support it, the fact that it got hit means like your entire front here is kind of now very scary. Like it seems like it's about to collapse, and you need to like find a way to like solve the situation very quickly. That probably means getting like a tank.
You know, at that point I knew I lost, but I was like, I will keep going for content's sake.
Here, okay, I actually like hit this infantry. The reason I think I did that is because I was thinking, okay, he's spamming mechs, right? So there's no way that he got tanks. He probably just went pure mechs, like TNT copter, similar to what Ghost 7 is doing. So I kind of like underestimated here, not realizing that, oh, this is actually a trap. But there's a reason I go for this infantry rather than the capping one. The capping one I know I can't stop anyway, so there's no point denying it,
More
right?
defense.
The only... Yeah, like there's just more defense, so you just hit the infantry with less defense, so you do more damage overall. And that just means like there's one less full HP infantry to threaten mine in the future. So that's why I go for this hit. Although it's definitely like safer for the recon to run away. Kind of like recognizing this might be a trap, especially since you moved in like this weird formation.
At that point I was proud of myself.
Yeah,
I
this
was
is
like,
pretty good.
I
Like
trapped a Kantbei unit!
oh, okay.
I trapped a Kantbei unit!
My poor recon is dying. Oh no.
I trapped a Kantbei unit. I was so proud, and you have no idea. I may have lost the war, but I won that fight.
Okay, so you go another B-copter. This might be okay. The problem still is like you have to like really answer what is happening here in the bottom right front. Like this top left front, it's kind of like more or less stabilizing now for you. You have like mechs, you have a tank, you're about to kill my recon, you have a lot of infantry. This is very good for you right now. Like it's not easy for me to break this.
Over there,
yeah,
it's party time.
But here, yeah, but here in the bottom right, you see that I have like a recon and a tank and like some infantry. So you need to like have something to answer my tank immediately. That probably means like a B-copter. My preferred answer would have been like another tank. A T-copter and a mech is probably like way too slow. So you can't really do that. So I think tank is probably like the safest choice. Because then like you'll have 1.5 tanks in this area. Which means you can kill my tank, I think. If I try to hit something that isn't a tank. And then if you manage to kill the tank, that instantly changes the dynamic on the front. Where instead of me winning this front, I'm now losing this front. And then, yeah, I just see like, oh, there's an infantry on the mountain, let's kill it. So I like every time I see like I can kill an infantry, I just go for it because I want to reduce Sammy's infantry. I'm also like feeling a little confident here because I know I just hit your tank, so it's unlikely you have another tank, especially knowing like you have like 2 T-copters in a tank and like I think at least 2 mechs at the top. Because of like all of that, and I think I assumed you also had like an AA somewhere because like I was playing you specifically. So I assume like there's an AA somewhere for sure. That means like there's no tank here for sure, right?
When you find Master Kantbei multi-tactical, you expect anti-air. That's the rule of thumb.
Yeah. You should just expect like, you know, like, I don't know, like a day 6 anti-air or something against this guy. Okay, and then like we start capturing again. Like there's no reason not to because I have like a tank and a recon around against like basically nothing around it, so should be pretty okay for me. Oh, I managed to free my recon actually. This is pretty nice.
I was so sad. You have no idea. I was proud of my plan. I was like, I made it, and then I pick up my turn. I'm like, where the recon went? Why? I had it trapped. I had it under control.
Yeah, and then I run my infantry to your infantry, which is pretty good for you, because now this infantry is for sure dead.
For sure, yeah. For sure.
This is interesting. Okay, so you see the fact that I have an artillery, but you still go for the attack.
Kill them all.
Is that worth it? This might actually technically be worth it. You're trading one infantry for an infantry.
Because if I don't, I know you have more unit there, so if I don't, then you will just capture my stuff, and I don't want you to capture my stuff yet.
I see. Well, you don't have to worry about that really, because you have 2 mechs and a tank. It's really hard for me to break this. Like, artillery makes it so your mechs can't approach, but that doesn't mean like I can actually attack into you either. So in this kind of like setup, I think like we're actually kind of stalemated. It's fine for you to not go for that attack, although this is still okay as well, honestly. Like, you trade one infantry for one infantry is not the worst thing. You get another B-copter, okay. Really like embracing the unit count.
Yeah.
I think I would have gone like another T-copter, honestly, and then maybe like get a tank for sure, or like an AA. Like, yes, Drake has bad B-copters, but you still want like an anti-air or something against like his B-copter, because your copters really want to hit tanks. They don't really want to hit a copter.
Usually, if I had any other CO outside of Sami, I would already have my NTR right now. The only reason why I don't have an NTR yet, it's because unit count and Sami.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I don't think I like the recon here at the bottom base, because again, you already have like a lot of vision, because like your infantry are like sitting on all the mountains they see. Like, if there's a mountain, your infantry will sit on it. It feels like. So you don't really like need more vision, right? Like, you know what's here. The problem is you can't fight into it because like your tank's injured. Yeah. So I think you should have just saved up for another tank here for sure. There's no point to the recon. And like, if you're worried about like infantry, like your infantry is so much better, you'll eat mine alive anyway, so you don't have to worry about losing infantry fights as Sami. That's kind of like one of her. That's kind of like the main point of her. Okay, here. Yeah, so like
this is why I bought that recon, because I knew you would just kill my people there. You're violent.
I mean, so the thing is like. The thing is, like, you shouldn't have like left your infantry kind of like very exposed in these areas, right? Like, knowing that you don't have a tank in the area anymore, you shouldn't have like been playing this aggressively, unless like you're hoping I might think you have more stuff and like refuse to attack as a result. Like, I get scared, but like at this point, like I've been hitting all your stuff all game long. I don't think it's likely that this is actually like some kind of 200 IQ play where you actually have more stuff hidden in the back. And that's why you're playing this aggressively. I think like this turn I was a little bit...
you got vision over my infantry by the forest. It's because of that mountain, man. Why? You have seen me coming. Why? That wasn't my plans.
Yeah, I think like this turn, I was like super worried because like I saw like you had 4 infantry in the center and like mine just died. Usually people don't play in the center, so like I wasn't expecting this. So I was like, okay, he's gonna take my cities for sure. I park a B-copter here to make it specifically so your infantry cannot run into there and start capturing, because it's so hard to disrupt a capture. It's just easier to kill them before they're on the city, right? Yeah. This B-copter also protects this city and this port. So this port is very important. I don't want to lose this port.
Why?
Because there's an idea here where you just drop a battleship.
Battleship time.
Right?
You know, I once did a battleship on my side, and that battleship.
Yeah, like a battleship on your side is pretty good to stall the map. But if you get like your opponent's port, and you have the like your army is there, right? Like assuming this army here, for example, is here. You just get 2 AAs and then like you get like a battleship and then like 2 AAs. I'm not sure like what order you should do it. Maybe like the AA first, and then like because you need to save funds for the battleship, right? But the idea is like if you get a battleship here, this game's over, because you know Drake bombers trying to kill a battleship on a port is pretty sad. You're gonna have anti-air for sure, or like a fighter, right? Like you're gonna get something like that. This entire area suddenly gets zoned out, right? Like none of my vehicles can pass through here without giving you a free shot. And then like my infantry get murdered by your infantry. So this entire area can potentially just fall if I let you take this port and build a battleship. So I'm very concerned about this port right here. I don't want it to fall at all.
Oh, interesting. Now it was worth it because that's mech on infantry, and that's always worth it. And now you wear down my mech as well, so I understand why you did this. And I was sad. I was like, why can't I add the balls to do that? Poor little mech, he did nothing wrong.
Yeah, so here, I think I just wanted to like start trading units off here. So like, this is like strictly speaking a bad trade because like you can technically just pull the mech away and like kill the infantry somehow, something like that. But I just wanted to like start trading off your mechs and tanks for like my tanks. So because like I was gonna start streaming a lot of vehicles into this area pretty soon. So and because like your mech spamming, your mechs all generally takes longer to reach the front anyway. So if I trade off like all your fighting vehicles here with mine, potentially I have a timing where I can push you back in this front, and then I'm winning on both fronts. Because here, like, I'm already confident I'm winning down here, because, like, again, I first hit your tank. At this point, you still haven't shown me a second tank. I've been killing infantry all day long. I'm about to take this city, so, like, I'm feeling very good about this front here. The center will stabilize because, like, the B-copter and, like, the reinforcing infantry, so this is the only front I need to win. And if I win this front, then I just win the game, because you are losing on every front, and you have no compensation anyway, so the game's pretty much over if I win here. This is interesting. So you go for like the tank kill. Yeah, this is okay. I would have considered like maybe hitting with the tank first to preserve like the HP of your mech, because a 7, like if you hit with the tank first, it's like 8 HP. Like it will go down to like 8 HP, and then your mech will finish it off, right? So like you'll have a 7 HP mech and an 8 HP tank, which is much scarier than the full HP tank and a 4 HP mech, especially a Sammy.
Oh, really?
Like there's actually a theory.
That's actually smart.
If you're playing Sammy, like what you're actually supposed to do sometimes is you wall with vehicles instead of infantry, and then you put your mechs behind the vehicles. So like you invite them to like first strike all of your tanks, and then you just kill them back with mechs. So as like Sammy has like weird plays like this. You don't do it every game, of course, but this is an idea for her.
That's interesting. I never thought this way, but so that's amazing. I think after this replay here, I will already improve a lot my Sammy plays, and I want to main Sammy in like tier 4-ish, tier 3, because she's more likely 3, but like Lash and Sammy are like the two CO I really want to main.
Yeah, Sammy is pretty fun. Lash is interesting, but I think she's very hard to play. You can look at, I don't know like if he's still active, but the best Lash player I know is Reimer. He exclusively plays Lash, I think, except in tier 1 where he picks Hawk. And then tier 4 I don't know who he picks, but it's usually like Lash in tier 3 and tier 2. And he's very high rated, like he's, I think 1400, like 1400 plus, right? Like he's higher rated than me at the moment. So he's like one of the best Lash players for sure.
Yeah.
The other account I would say, this is an alt. We know this is an alt, but it's called Izaya Orihara. Basically it only plays Lash every game, like regardless of the tier. It's like a Lash only account in FUG. So that's also like a very strong player.
Yeah. Lash is fun, man. Lash is just very fun.
Yeah, Lash is very, very interesting.
I like CO's people nobody play. Like Rachel, Lash.
The only sad thing about Lash is that usually the maps where Lash is good, Kindle is better. That's like the only sad thing about her. Otherwise, I think like she's pretty decent.
I am collapsing.
And then, yeah, here, like in the top left, I felt pretty good about this turn. Like I killed your tank, I killed the mech. There's only one weak mech now, so I'm feeling very good about this area because like I just killed all of your infantry as well. So now I'm confident I'm winning here. I'm winning in the bottom, and then in the center, like I should be able to stop all these captures easily. So like this is also fine. So like now I'm very confident of winning. And yeah, we just like interrupt all of your captures, make sure like you can't get that port. We get like an anti-air. The reason for the anti-air is like I'm a little worried about like battle copters, potentially, because like I only have one copter, and also like Drake copters don't really answer battle copters that well. Like they still work, it's just like not ideal. Also, like because you're sending your infantry forward, anti-air is I think like one of the few units that can interrupt an infantry by itself. Like it does
Medium
like
tank
takes
as
it down to
well.
like 3 HP. Medium tank as well, but it's so expensive, right? So like as a cheap answer to like infantry just going aggressive on your caps, anti-air is like one of the best answers if you're sure they don't have tanks around. And I'm reasonably confident you don't have tanks around.
If you got Jess or Grim, I think it's possible with artilleries, but I'm not quite sure about Jess. Grim I know, but Jess I'm not quite sure there.
I think artillery doesn't work for Jess either. It might be a lock roll though, I'm not too sure. But the thing is, like, the artillery can like only point itself at like 1 or 2 cities at most because of like how the map's laid out, right? Anti-air can cover like any terrain within 6 tiles of it. So like the anti-air is just better in that regard. It will cover more things because if you think about like to cover these 3 cities, I need two artillery minimum, or I can just get 1 anti-air and it covers all 3. So instead of like spending 16k, I can spend instead of spending 12k, I can spend 8k. And then yeah, here we just like, you know, keep hitting all of your infantry because like I have vehicles around and you don't, so I can just like take all these attacks.
Right now,
I actually like did not realize, like, yeah, for some reason I just forgot like the mech can move onto the mountain and hit my artillery. So like I didn't account for this. Like my brain just stopped thinking at this point. So like when I came back into my turn, I was like, oh, of course, he can hit me from the mountain. Why didn't I think of this? So that was a silly mistake. This one I think is like maybe too aggressive at this point, though maybe you had already given up, but you see like there's an anti-air, right? And then you attack with the copter in range of it, and like you don't really have anything to protect the anti-air. So like this is just like letting your copter die. Okay, so the problem with this B-copter spam idea, this is usually better when you have tanks, because tanks are the natural anti-air hunters. Mechs can do it, but because they're so slow, you'd have to have the mech like right behind the battlecopter in order to like counter hit the anti-air, right? But if they don't, if number one, it's hard to position them that way even with T-copters, because the T-copters don't really want to do that. The second thing is like if the anti-air dies, I mean if the copter dies, and it will die to an anti-air, then there is something that can potentially hit the mech behind it, right? And in that case, then you get wall broken, right? Like the formation is refuted, essentially. So like instead of defending 2 units, you end up losing 2 units instead. So this is why like tank is generally better with this style. So yeah, I think like you just needed some anti-air potentially to like answer my copter, not just pure copter. And you needed some tanks to like make this work, or just more T-copters and more mechs. A little bit less on the B-copter. The other thing I'd note about this is mech spam style can be strong, and on this map I would say like it does have like ideas. I don't think like this is necessarily wrong as Sammy to play, but you can see like how quickly it can collapse on you if you don't play it correctly, because this is like the crazy thing about Go 7, right? Like he is able to make these builds work so well because like he has a lot of intuition and a lot of like knowing what is overextending and what is not. And in this particular case, like because like you overextended too much, just slightly, your whole thing collapses. And the moment like your army is like slightly behind in the engagement with this kind of composition, it's very hard to retreat because mechs are slow, and it's very hard to get back in the game because like the moment you lose a few units, it will avalanche into like losing a lot of units, right? Because anti-air one-shot copters, tanks and recons can very consistently kill mechs without taking too much damage back. So like you just get run over very quickly. So yeah, now we just see that starting to happen, right? Like everything is just starting to die, and like there's really not a whole lot you can do at this point. Like all the infantry that are hiding, maybe to like be sneaky with Victory March, we just remove all of those, make sure like it's not a problem. Again, we sit our units on like cities, so like you can't get there first, and force you to kill them, makes it easier to defend. And then
I
we
will
just
say this.
solidify.
At that point, I gave up, first of all, and second, I wanted to charge as much as I could my meter to prove my point that if you are already losing, it's not your victory march that will make you win. Because if you're already losing, well, victory march won't change a thing. Except if you're smart enough to like HQ cap, but then for me it's a cheap victory, it's not a true victory, but hey, that's the game, you know? So I think that was what I had in my mind because I knew I lost. So I was like, I will fill my meter, I will get my super, and I will just showcase how victory march just doesn't make you win. And I think that's why I didn't use my double time because I knew I lost anyway. Because usually I use double time. Double time is like my go-to because I think double time is the way semi should be played. Victory march is OP, don't get me wrong, it's broken. But if you rely on victory march, you're not a good semi player, you're a good capture player.
Yeah, that's a very reasonable take, and I think like this is very instructive, right? Like exactly like you said, if you are already losing, victory march doesn't save you unless you can take the HQ, and a smart player will be protecting their HQ for sure. So this is why like I was getting rid of all of your infantry. I also like knew like, oh, victory march is coming up soon. I don't want anything taking my port. I don't want anything taking my HQ. Like I don't want anything taking my tower. Like these cities can fall. It's whatever at this point because I know I'm up in unit count. Because like how the engagements have gone, that even if you take off my cities, you will just end up losing faster because all of those infantry then die, and then I have enough infantry to recapture everything immediately. So like your income advantage lasts for like 2 turns, 3 turns, and then it's gone. But then I killed all of your infantry, and like once Sammy falls behind in unit count, she cannot win anymore basically.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard.
That's funny because I speak about Victory March, and on one of my last few Global League game I played, I used Sammy, and I Victory March, and I won because of the cap limit. And that was funny because I had like the income lead for so long. The only reason why my opponent was surviving it's because first of all the guy was higher ILO than me, and the second reason it was Drake. So global damage is kinda nasty. So because of global damage, man, the guy kept going, and then at some point I'm like, oh, victory march, and I got 2 building in range, boom, I won because the capture limit.
Yeah. This is actually the reason why like global damage actually isn't that good versus Sammy. Like it's still pretty good, right? But Sammy doesn't mind that much because honestly, if you think about it, right? An 8 HP infantry for Sammy still captures a city in 2 turns.
Yeah.
With Victory March, it still gets it in 1 turn, right? And like, honestly, is there a difference between an 8 HP Sammy tank and a full HP one? It still does nothing, right?
Well,
like, it's still there to die for the next.
The biggest issue with global damage, again, even if it's like Sammy versus Drake, is the fact that your unit will melt, so it will be really hard for you to keep track of the unit count. And that was my issue because I had the economy lead and I was taking much better engagement than him, but it was still in the race because Typhoon is just retarded. But yeah, I still ended up winning, and yeah, I think global damage should be like on their own tier and like only on some maps, because I feel like global damage is so easy to use, and when someone is like a Olaf main or a I don't know, a Drake main, I'm like, okay, so you win with global damage. I don't know about higher ILO. Is it popular like Hawk and stuff in higher ILO?
It really depends on the map. I think like global damage is always like fairly popular though. This is correct because like as you said, right, like it's the simplest game plan in the entire like meta. If the map is big enough, right, pick global damage, survive until you win, right? The only time this isn't true, fighting Eagle, and then like you're Olaf, right? And like, you have to play a bit smarter. You have to make sure Eagle doesn't lightning strike for free, right? Like first of all, Eagle can't get lightning strike first. That's step 1 of not losing as Olaf. Number 2, you know, Eagle can't get lightning strike on a turn where there's no snow. So you have to force him to use lightning strike after your first superpower, right? Like
Yeah.
And then like after that you're okay, but you're not winning, right? There's a lot of like complicated stuff like that. But generally speaking, global damage is, I think, the simplest game plan if the map is big enough. If the map's small, then the simplest game plan is, pick an aggressive CO, kill them before powers are relevant, and then it doesn't matter, right? But even then, it can be tricky because killing them before powers are relevant means you are a good attacker.
Yeah.
So like your CO might be good at attacking, but if you have no idea how to like get information, how to attack properly, how not to overextend, then you can still die. And then it's no longer simple because mass damage will kill you over time.
Global damage always win in longer game, regardless of the matchup.
Yeah, almost always.
Like-
You basically need like a 20% income lead in order to not die against, or in order to be like able to stall out global damage. You need 20% more income.
Or you need
Otherwise,
Achi
like they're
and Colin.
better off.
Achi and Colin. That's the response.
Well, okay, so the thing is, Colin already has 20% more income as a result of having 20% cheaper units. And Hachi is just like, he kills you from like having a million infantry like Sensei, and then like a mega tank. And your entire army dies to like a million infantry and one mega tank, killing everything one turn at a time. And then yeah, here we just pop our superpower because we have it. Why not? We finally get that medium tank I was talking about, just to like make sure. I was actually surprised I didn't see that many mechs. I wasn't sure what was going on, but to be safe, like I got a medium tank because maybe you went medium tank, right? Maybe there are just more mechs in every forest I don't see. Whatever the case, like a medium tank should answer everything you have left. I have already like 3 AA, so I'm not worried about copters anymore. And since I'm gonna have the income advantage, it's gonna be very hard for you to fight me with medium tanks because like 1, I have more income. 2, my heavy tanks are better than yours because I don't have like minus 10% attack on my vehicles. So this is why, like, to solidify the win, I just decide, okay, easiest answer, we just get medium tanks.
I'm surprised I didn't resign there. Oh yeah, I resigned.
Oh, you did resign here. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty much over, right?
That was.
We can see, right? Like
clear.
even if even if you had victory march in this position, like nothing would have changed. Maybe you take the tower, but I take it back in like 2 turns anyway. It doesn't matter. Like you maybe take 2 cities. Maybe you can take this one. You can maybe take this one. You can maybe take the tower. Like you take like 3 cities, 2 cities and a tower. It doesn't change anything. You're still losing. So yeah, you're exactly right. That victory march doesn't save you if you're already losing.
Yeah, that's what I keep telling, and that's why I'm so sad when I see all these Sammy main in my ILO. I'm like, another bad Sammy, another bad Sammy, another bad Sammy. Like 90% of the Sammy player in my ILO are bad Sammy player, and only 10% is kind of good. But even that 10%, it's a really small amount, and you barely see them. They usually go higher in the ILO. They don't stick around in 800 and 900. They just don't because they're good players, you know. So anything to say, man? This is near the end of this stream. Anything else to say, to add as closing thoughts?
I think like this was a pretty decent game for you overall. I would potentially consider like getting some artillery because like mech and artillery really good as a combination. And yeah, your problem in this game was not that you built too much AA, which is your usual problem. It's the fact that you built no anti-air. So the reverse of your usual problem.
and that's funny because here I didn't really like the map. Well, I don't hate it, but I don't like it either. Like that's my feeling toward most of the maps in this current rotation. Like in this current rotation, I need to take a new look, but I'm not quite sure if there's a map I truly hate outside of all of the light bases map. Like this map, it's not great, but it's not bad. It's just okay, you know. So like when it's just okay, I struggle a bit more because I'm like, yeah, I'm not a fan of the map, you know. It's not the kind of map I would like rush into to play, you know. It's not like Marengo. Marengo is so fun, man. I covered Marengo at least twice with other content creator, and I will cover it again for sure. Redemption World, the Static. These are like my top my top maps. Scavenger as well. I like Scavenger a lot. Uh,
Yeah, those
any
are all pretty good maps.
anything else to
I
add?
think I think like the map I dislike the most, like still in the pool because Wheel of Torment's gone now, is probably around the block. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Oh
It's the one
yeah,
with like airports.
this one
Um,
is a
my
weird one. I think this one is
my
interesting because Von Bolt is actually awful in that map, and that's funny because
yeah, Von Bolt is yeah actually awful there. Hawk is probably the best pick. I still think like Hawk is better than Sasha there, even though I lost a game recently as Hawk. But I played it really badly as well. The thing is about that map, the funny thing is, your composition is actually supposed to be very few tanks. Like you get like 4 tanks or something. The tanks are only there not to hit tanks. The tanks are only there to kill AA. And then you spam copter, MD tanks, artillery, and then mechs. And that's how you win on that map. You don't get that many tanks.
so I will
So it's
showcase
just
the
super.
map in case people are wondering what map we are talking about
Yeah,
right now. Around the
yeah,
block.
this one, another
Yeah.
block. So
I
yeah, it's super weird.
I think that one is sad. You know why? That freaking mountain. I understand they wanted to like do semi light, but sometimes it just feels good to have like that turn where you make 3 tanks, and you just don't see that turn happening in this map.
Yeah, that's kind of like the problem is with this map. The fact that that mountain is there makes it so you can't get 3 tanks, right?
Yeah,
And this is super important. That means you will never have a vehicle advantage on your 2 base side against their 1 base side. Even like if you build a tank every turn, they can just mirror, right? And you will never necessarily have a vehicle advantage. So you only have like an infantry advantage, which is kind of like tricky to use. And then because of that, like you just need to spam copters, and then they will spam copters, which means both of you will start spamming anti-air as a result. And then you get into like the composition I just said, right? Like it's anti-air copter mech, some tanks to hunt the anti-air, maybe a medium tank because the medium tank can one-shot the anti-air, right? And then artillery to lock the cities. And then the map kind of like just stalls out at super high level as a result. Like there was a game between like Starflash and Rice Muncher, I think a few weeks ago. It went to like day 30 or something ridiculous, and like one of them was clearly winning, but they couldn't convert. Not because like they were bad, but because like the map's just so hard to convert.
and that's surprising because the HQ is actually rarely exposed because of these stupid pipes in front of it. So that's kind of weird because at some point you're like, can set up a plan and just HQ cap. I don't know about higher level, but on my ILO I've seen a lot of game where the HQ is threatened, and it's really easy to threaten the HQ. So I really don't know about other ILO for real, but I think
Like we we generally don't go for HQ cap because like it's seen as too high risk most of the time. Like if there's an artillery like behind the pipe blocking it, not that usually there would be, but on the off chance there is,
yeah.
like then the HQ cap fails, and then you also like expose your entire army to a first hit. So like you could just lose there. So it's kind of like high risk. Yeah, for me personally, the way I play it is because I don't like attacking the 1 base side. I just move all of my stuff from the 2 base towards my own 1 base, bait them into attacking me, and then I take a winning fight there. And then once they lose, I offer draw because I don't want to play the map out. I just want to prove to them like they can't win against me. I don't think I can win necessarily because like it's so hard to attack, but I can make it so you never win. So your only option is to draw with me.
So anyway, thank you very much for coming again. We will play more for sure if you want to come back, man. You're always welcome. I really enjoy my time with you, and this is funny because we will have the the Kantbei Cup, I should call it, the Kantbei Cup very soon, and you're part of it, right? With Go 7, I think.
Yeah, I believe I signed up for it.
Yeah, so I cannot wait to cover the games from the tournament. And your game with Goal 7 will be interesting, I can already tell. So,
Am I fighting him in the first round?
Eh?
Am I fighting him in the first round?
Yeah, because
Do you know?
it's for fairness. That's why I ask people around their MMR, and you and Gosen are like the top dogs here. So I'm like, I need to make the both of us, the both of you fight first, so it's a bit more fair for everyone else, you know. So
Okay,
this will be an interesting one.
Yeah, he's probably gonna build like 40 copters against me. I can already like feel it. He's gonna build 40 copters and then like 50 mechs, and I won't know what to do.
So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for coming again. If you have not subscribed yet, just do it, please. That's very appreciated. We have a lot of streams like that with Kantbei, amazing guest as usual. And we will see each other in future video and stream. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.